Audio production.
For me, boys, yeah. 1738.
Hello, and welcome back to Comparative Politics 101. It's Britt
and Madison, and today we will be discussing legitimacy, which many of you have requested in our comment section. Let's begin. Legitimacy refers to a leader's right to rule over a state as determined by the citizens of the state.
When the people of a state grant legitimacy to a leader, they are recognizing that he or she can rightfully exercise authority within the state. Mainly because it's difficult to run a state smoothly and peacefully without it. Legitimacy is the basis for a stable political system. If a leader violates his or her legitimacy, if he or she begins acting in a way that makes the people lose their support of his or her right to authority, rebellions and resistance are more likely.
When a leader has legitimacy, he or she will be able to carry out their policies more effectively, which will benefit the state and its citizens.
Economic well-being. If there is economic stability, people will give the government more legitimacy.
Historical tradition and longevity. If a government has been in place for a while, people will naturally give it more legitimacy.
Charismatic leadership. If a leader exudes the qualities that will make others want to follow him or her, he or she will be seen as more legitimate.
Nationalism. If people identify with their nation, they will be more likely to give the government legitimacy.
Satisfaction with the government's performance. If the government gives citizens benefits, wins wars, and protects the people, chances are it's legitimate.
Understanding the concept of legitimacy will help us understand the contents of certain political conflicts, as we know that violations of legitimacy causes chaos. In addition, if we understand legitimacy, we can compare and contrast the leaders of different states using their legitimacy as a guide. Legitimacy is just one more idea that will help us look at comparative politics in a more in-depth manner.
Let's look at an analogy for legitimacy. A kid is chewing gum in school. Her teacher says it's okay. However, when the principal walks into the room, he tells her that chewing gum isn't allowed. According to the rules of the school, which teachers, parents, and students understand and agree to act by, the kid has to listen to her principal and stop chewing the gum because the principal is a legitimate authority. There are three main types of legitimacy: traditional legitimacy, charismatic legitimacy, and rational legal legitimacy. Traditional legitimacy is based on the belief that tradition should determine who becomes a political leader and how. Sometimes this means that the same family stays in power over several generations. Other times it means that myths and legends determine who is chosen as a leader, for example, in ancient indigenous cultures. Rituals and ceremonies often reinforce the idea that a leader is legitimate. Both monarchies and theocratic governments employ traditional legitimacy.
An example of a traditional leader of a state would be Queen Elizabeth II, who is the head of the British monarchy due to her ancestry. An example of a traditional leader within the church is Pope Francis, whose legitimacy is based on his role as a successor to the apostles and St. Peter in particular. Charismatic legitimacy is based on the dynamic qualities of a leader that make people want to follow him or her, or even give their lives for him or her. While plenty of leaders have charisma, charismatic legitimacy refers to leaders whose primary claim to legitimacy is their charisma rather than the tradition or law. Charismatic legitimacy is usually short-lived, as the legitimacy fades when the charismatic leader loses power or dies.
One example of a charismatic leader is Hitler. Hitler was a terrible person, but he knew how to catch the attention of a crowd by speaking the secret anti-Semitic prejudices of Germans aloud.
There were plenty of economic problems in Germany during the World War II era, and Hitler blamed the Jews for these problems when the Germans needed a scapegoat. His public speaking skills and cleverness gained him a huge crowd of followers who blindly supported him, even using slogans like "The Fuhrer is always right." Like the legitimacy of many charismatic leaders, Hitler's legitimacy was short-lived. When he committed suicide, the Nazi regime lost its power. One more type of legitimacy is rational legal legitimacy, which is based on a system of well-established laws and procedures. Rational legal legitimacy is highly institutionalized, which means that it is grounded in stable institutions that last from regime to regime. Citizens grant rational legal legitimacy to a leader because they believe in the rules and laws that got him or her elected.
Rational legal legitimacy is based on two types of law: common law, which is based on tradition, past practices, and legal precedents, and code law, which is based on a system of written rules of law divided into commercial, civil, and criminal codes. One leader with rational legal legitimacy is U.S. President Barack Obama, whose power is based on the text of the Constitution, which describes the presidential election process, as well as what the president can do and cannot do. It's quiz time! Who determines if a leader has legitimacy? If you answered citizens, you are correct. The next question is, if a leader does not have legitimacy, there is blank. The correct answer is C, chaos. The final question is, what are the three types of legitimacy? The correct answer is A, charismatic, traditional, and rational legal. For more information on legitimacy, you can go to the Comparative Politics Today AP Edition textbook, Max Weber's Three Types of Legitimacy, or the link listed above. Thanks for watching.